host, Pirate Master Deadpool Supreme. That's right, coming at you live with another exciting episode of Chillin with Deadpool. Today we'll be discussing a very special character who I think who Marvel has been trying to sweep under its metaphysical rug since the 90s. Allow me to introduce you. This right here is Mayday. Mayday Parker, the very first Spider-Girl. Let's get started, shall we? Let's go a little bit more in depth. Mayday Parker is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson from Earth 92982, otherwise known as the MC2 reality. Because of her hotshot attitude and mild-manneredness, her friends took to calling her Mayday. Her parents saw nothing wrong with this, and Mayday quite liked the nickname, and as a result, that's what she became. Mayday's conception was originally what started the initial MC2 reality. She started off as a simple character developed by the writers Tom Falco and his team. Now, because the main Marvel universe, Earth 616, tends to try to keep things dangerously close to their precious little status quo, the concept of Mayday being the child of Peter and Mary Jane was kind of far-fetched to them, because they felt that Peter was growing up way too quickly. Even though his career started in the early 60s, you could tell they were on their way to having a child by the time the 80s, or 80s, sometime after they were married, or probably beforehand. It's not like people can have children out of wedlock at these points. We're not in the olden days, and sometimes marriage and sometimes weddings can be, very expensive and very extravagant. So it's not that hard to believe, especially in today's society. Especially with One More Day, when Mephisto says that I want your marriage, and so that way he can stop Mayday from actually being born and everything. He does realize that people can have children out of wedlock. It's not like that Peter could just go up to Mary Jane, have their secret love affair, and then she becomes pregnant with his child while, she's still with Paul, after all. That actually would be a good idea for a comic, it's based on most of the drama shows that they've done. When certain characters have a love affair, then as a result, one of them gets pregnant, and as a result, they have to deal with the consequences of it. Come on now. It's not that far-fetched. And people say, I'm crazy. But anyway, back to the point. Mayday Parker initially was the very first person to don the mantle of Spider-Girl. There was a lot of potential stored up within her. She had a lot of friends in school, some of them even with the Fantastic Four. Heck, she even had a whole dynamic going with Dark Devil. The way I described it, Mayday pretty much had some kind of dynamic with just about everybody. No wonder she exuberated such main character energy. You kind of get the feeling that that Mayday here became something of like a go-to, something that DeFalco and his team could have a lot of fun with and wiggle room to write interesting stories with. The Clone War, this time in the 90s, the Clone Wars had clearly horsewhipped Peter into submission by this point, but Mayday had stayed consistent throughout the rest of her tenure. As a result, she became What If's premier breakout character. Not many people know this, but it wasn't Captain Carter from the MCU What If series. Nope, the very first breakout character from What If is definitely her. Mayday's Spider-Girl. In fact, in a way, I kind of compare her to Steve Urkel from Family Matters. Besides the whole nerd shtick, both of them were characters that were only meant to serve as one-offs during the first issue or so, but became so beloved they kept reappearing because there was just a lot of potential to build up from. And that's it. That's pretty much Mayday in a nutshell. A one-off that debuted well after the series had started, 20 years or so since the first What If had started, but kept reappearing because there was just a crap ton of potential they could unearth with her. So much so that she became the main focal point as her series progressed. And as a result, this book here demonstrates all of Mayday's original journeys in the Legacy book. In fact, let's take a look at it, shall we? This right here is... excuse me. This issue right here is what kickstarted Mayday's debut. Now, it starts out with Mayday practicing... Mayday is one of the star players of Midtown's basketball team during the late 1990s. Of course, she's just vibing it up, shooting some b-ball in the middle of a big game, all that here. And then, kaboom! She slam dunks it pretty much harder than Michael Jordan at the NBA game. And as you can tell by her parents right over here, they are kind of horrified, thinking that she may have been a mutant or something. But whether she be a mutant or not, she actually has she's probably just maybe a mutate or something. But if you can't tell, this is Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson. I know that you guys have probably all already know this, but to those who haven't, this is them right here, in at least about 15 years from the MCU's current timeline. And then, yes, if you can tell by the white streak in Peter Parker's hair, he is definitely getting older. And also kind of looks a lot like Doctor Strange. So it's strange. This is pretty much her origin story. It dates back to the original when Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson first gave birth to their daughter. Sometime in the, like, I don't know, like 80s, maybe 70s, I guess. The timelines here, even in the alternate universes, their timeline gets pretty dang confusing after a while. I think it probably would have taken place around like 2006 or something like that. I don't know. But this is when Peter Parker and in this world, his arch enemy Norman Osborn, aka the original and first Green Goblin. As a result of their final outcome, and Norman Osborn lost his life, and as a result, Peter lost his leg. But as a result, Norman's grandson, Normie 2, I think it's a stupid name for a grandson. I mean, seriously, why would Harry name his son after the very man who pretty much pissed all over his social life and abused him for a majority of his life? I don't know. It's just one of those things that Marvel just wants to keep the status continuity for. I mean, it's like, you want to build a new Norman Osborn, so you give him the same hairstyle, same personality, even the same name, so it's like, I don't know. It's probably just one of those things. While Peter and MJ are discussing Mayday's future, Mayday happens to be overhearing everything, and as you can tell, she horrifyingly discovers that she is the daughter of the original Spider-Man. And as you can tell here, I mean, this right here is Normie Osborn, Harry's grandson. And by the tattoo of this, you look like he was like the Antichrist. Honor thy father, kill the spider. And I mean, look at his hair right here, dreadlocks. I mean, dude, seriously, he's a pasty white guy. White kid. He cannot pull that off. Even Harry can't pull that. Harry can't pull it off. I mean, I know in the new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series that they're going to make him black just to pull off the cornrows, but seriously, I think, to me, that just looks more like what's his face? Oh, yeah, like Randy Robertson, or literally any other character with cornrows. I'm just saying, I mean, look at his hairstyle. It's one thing, I mean, they fixed it in the Spectacular Spider-Man series, but even then, it was kind of a stretch. I mean, the tattoos and everything, dude, he looks like he's the Antichrist. And to think Mayday actually had a supposed crush on this guy. I mean, I know that, the chicks dig the bad boy angle, but even someone who's practically like her cousin at this point, because her father used to babysit him, her father and mother used to babysit him. I mean, they're practically like cousins at this point. Seriously, I mean, look at the tattoos and something. He looks like he crawled out from the bowels of hell for revenge. It's like, oh, God. On an unrelated note, you get to see the Fantastic Four. The guy on the right is clearly the Human Torch. The guy up here is Ben, and these two over here. The one on the right is Franklin Richards, Johnny's nephew, and the son of the Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic. And the Skrull chick over here is Lyja Storm. Now, for those of you who don't know, Lyja was actually Johnny Storm's ex-wife. Unfortunately, she also came during a time during the Secret Wars, where she impersonated what's her face? Alicia Masters, who was obviously known to be the love interest of Ben Grimm. Unfortunately, this little shape-shifting act kind of nearly poisoned the relationship between the two. And when she revealed to be a Skrull, trying to expose, her true self and purity, Johnny really kind of took it too harshly. And let's just say, long story short, Lyja took to stalking him and lying to him. So even though she really didn't mean to, she kind of really did. And I know that there's some very few people that want these two together, but to me, I just don't see it. To me, this just seems to me like she was just cheating. She was cheating on Johnny, but really didn't want to, and Johnny kind of put a hole through a wall. And believe it or not, that's actually what really happened. So that's just a little side story of what there's going on from here. Anyway, back to Mayday and Mary Jane. She finds out Peter's costume in the attic of their well, actually, she finds Peter's costume in their attic. And even with the original web shooter that he used to have before he got organic web shooters. Because in my headcanon, after he turns into the man spider and turns back, he actually gains the ability to make organic webs, you know, similar to his organic man spider thing. But anyway, Mayday realizes that she probably has a lot to live up to, and it turns out one of the costumes actually belongs to her Uncle Ben, the original, the spider clone from the Clone Wars. Now, and I know that I actually kind of liked Ben Reilly before they botched his character in the 616. You know what universe actually did Ben Reilly so perfectly? It's the Ultimate Spider-Man TV cartoon. And I know there's going to be a lot of haters in the comments, so just, you know, don't at me for this. But I think they did a great job of handling the Clone Saga, or at least parts, they adapted to, like, parts and pieces of it. You know, the ones that actually didn't suck. And everything. So anyway, we join Peter Parker as he tries to face off against Normie Osborn on the Brooklyn Bridge, the very night that Gwen Stacy had unfortunately snuffed it. So it's pretty much it pretty much ended where it somewhat kind of began. And as a result, and soon enough, MJ comes into Mayday comes to the scene and says her mother's iconic catchphrase, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." A bit much considering it's, well, I mean, it is she is Mary Jane's daughter after all, so that is kind of funny. But the way she whoops on Normie, it's hilarious. Anyway, these two pretty much duke it out, and I kind of like the costume here. It's a blend of the Hobgoblin with Green Goblin's colors and everything, so... Yeah, so she pretty much does this as a one-off. You get to see all the different kind of action. I mean, the DeFalco and his team really put a lot of work into doing all this. I mean, Peter and MJ are obviously worried for their daughter, no surprise there. And it's a Normie, pretty much showing Normie, who I remind you is Harry Osborn's son. I mean, in my headcanon, Harry Osborn would have never let his son turn out like this, at all. And if he did, he would whoop his son's ass for doing so and ground him for life. Have him get those tattoos removal, and and while he's recovering, he'll be grounded. But yeah, it nearly explodes, and as a result, Normie gets knocked out in his head and taken away. I mean, seriously, they're really with the ponytails and everything, huh? With the dreadlocks and everything. Dude, as you can tell, he's a pasty white kid. Nah, he cannot pull off the dreadlocks. And it's just, you know, too much and everything. But yeah. In the end, the family decides to burn Spider-Man's gear and pretty much let the memory of him rest. You know, it's supposed to be like a one-off. This is the end of Mayday's initial story. She was the original what-if daughter of, it's like, your name is Mayday Parker, and today is the first day for the rest of your life. She starts every issue like this, and it becomes kind of tedious, but to those who are just jumping in, it kind of serves as this. Now over here, this is why she became the series' breakout character. And no, and it's not that, it's also because it's the brand new issue, dating October of 1998. Because the fans demanded it, the wildest and cutest web slinger of them all. Kind of cute is kind of a bit of a stretch, but... Mayday Parker. It was because of the first initial issue that Mayday had become the series' very first breakout character. A character that had debuted well after the series started, but kept reappearing because there was just a lot of potential they could unearth with her, that she became the main focal point as her series progressed. Now, as you can tell, the artwork from the first issue was kind of scratchy, but according to an interview with DeFalco, they figured that, you know what, seeing as though this is just already an issue that's going to be canceled and the comics are not going to be read anymore anyway, we might as well just slip this in here. In an ironic twist, that's also the same way how Stan Lee got the very first issue of Spider-Man published. And everything. Because they slipped it in with an already canceled or canceling comic that they figured, you know what, we might as well just slip this in here. Either one person or someone's going to notice it. But lo and behold, that little gambit pretty much started it all. And that's exactly what happened here. So as you can definitely tell, like father, like daughter. I'm going to flip through some of the pages just to give you a gist, but the artwork around here definitely picks up because, you know, the artwork, if you haven't noticed, was very scratchy in the initial one. Oh, looks like we had JR Vlog says, hello. Anyway, the artwork in the initial one, as you can probably see over here, is kind of scratchy and, you know, all over the place. It's kind of like they were just slopping ink all over the place, but in a very good way, you know. In the next few issues or so, Mayday's initial journey becomes apparent. She begins developing honing in her spider powers. And of course, this guy Jimmy Yama, apparently he's pretty much like Peter Parker, but way angrier. You know, I think he would have actually become like the new Juggernaut, at least in my headcanon. He becomes this just so that he can impress Mayday. Even though they've been friends for like countless years, Mayday just kind of friend zoned him in a way. And when her friend Davida Kirby, I don't know, maybe it's a real life reference to an issue or anything. She said she wants her to ask out Brad Miller, but spoiler alert, he's an anti-mutant assaulter. So it's like, I mean, come on, girl, you really could do better than that. She dresses up in basically a makeshift cat burglar costume with the midriff. I mean, come on, really the midriff. It's, I mean, don't you think it's a little bit on the nose or something? But anyway, she goes out, stops crime in a makeshift costume, and she has to deal with her dad, and pretty much with this guy, Dark Devil, who was actually sought to be Ben Reilly's actual kid. So they could be cousins, or very much just like an anti-heroic version of Daredevil. Very hardcore. And this guy, Crazy 8, he's pretty much like the Joker, but his ability but just throwing pool balls. Oh, thank you, yeah, but throwing pool balls. I mean, seriously, he takes the phrase balls to walls crazy to an insane level. And as you can see here, she made her uncle Ben Reilly's Spider-Man or Scarlet Spider costume actually work. And it looks pretty cute on her, so you can definitely tell. So yeah, Crazy 8, I can just imagine if they did an animated adaptation, Mark Hamill would definitely fit this guy. I mean, he's pretty much has the Joker. I mean, I read it in his voice, and you cannot tell me that this guy practically exuberates the Joker angle. It is just too much and everything. So she basically has to fight a Joker version, a pool ball or 8-ball version of the Joker. And when you say 8-ball, I mean, come on, it's definitely a reference to cocaine or anything. Unfortunately, Dark Devil is pretty much an anti-hero who is as crazy as Deadpool, but not as fun. He's just pretty much plain crazy. You can tell by him saying it's the cue to spout off my origin or anything, you know, just to tell them stories and all that, but Dark Devil apparently is a lot smarter than that, as he gives even Mayday Parker a run for her money. She is cocky and a bit, show-offy, but she looks at herself in the mirror and says, "Can you actually say that you possess the necessary dedication and courage and sense of responsibility?" And sense of responsibility. And to me, I think that was one of Spider-Man's most fatal flaws. He cares about responsibility way too much. Way an unnecessarily amount. He sacrifices his own social life and pretty much lives in a life of angst and guilt and everything. It's like, yes, we get it. Uncle Ben did die, but this is not. But throwing yourself into responsibility is not gonna honor his memory. He wanted to see you happy. He pretty much took you in and raised you like you were his own son. So it's like, ease up on the responsibility a bit. You don't have to sacrifice your whole social life. You just have to, it's like, in a way, it's kind of like, reminds me of Colossus, from the Deadpool movies. He said 4 or 5 moments. That's all it takes. You think, the way Mayday and her father and her old man are describing, you'd think that being a hero is like a full-time job. You wake up a hero, go to work a hero, brush your teeth a hero, eat breakfast a hero, and vice versa. It's not true. Throughout life, there's only been 4 or 5 moments that truly define a person's character. It's like, some could be rescue a friend, conquer a flaw, making a difference, even sparing a hated enemy. Those moments are the ones that define you as a hero. You can be anything you want, just don't be dicks about it. That's why I always root for the anti-heroes, because the anti-heroes pretty much have a flexible moral compass, but in the end, they do know what's right. Flash forward ahead a few pages, and it's basically just they're hanging out at the Fantastic Four's museum, and as a result, she ends up. Let's see, yada yada yada, da, 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 da. Brain spiral. Oh yeah, and of course, guess what she says? Even Franklin Richards, who was apparently in his teen years, apparently a really good one. And it might inappropriate for ogling. Yeah, she has a crush on him, but he's like 10 years older than her. Hard to believe this guy. I mean, I honestly think that Mayday and Franklin could actually have been something if they were like the same age and everything. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, their dads were pretty much or at least in Franklin's case, uncles were pretty much best friends. So of course, it would make kind of sense. But though the 10-year age gap, it's a bit much. I mean, she's like, what, 15, and he's like 25, or, no, wait, yeah, 25 and like 15. That's, no, wait, sorry, 20. 15 or 20. Oh, God. Yeah, 10 years older or something like that. Like, he's in his 20s and she's like a teenager, so it's like, yeah, they kind of stretch the line with the age gaps just a bit much. So, yeah. So basically they fight pretty well together. They fight pretty well together, side by side or back to back crane style, kind of way like Johnny and Peter used to do back in the early issues. And of course, Peter ends up, just, yep. Peter right here just kind of is a bit strict when it comes to that stuff. Because his life as Spider-Man was pretty much living hell, but that doesn't mean you have to. That's because he just shrouded himself with guilt, angst, and overwhelming sense of responsibility. That's why I never liked him that much, because he always put it first, and it was rarely enough that he had to put a social life, because he was just always punishing himself. It's like when Gamora, like in the Guardians of the Galaxy TV series, when Gamora was just trying to take responsibility but ended up suffering as a result of it. And Star-Lord says, there's a difference between taking responsibility and just punishing yourself, and he's not going to stand by and let someone do the same. So you can take your responsibility for your actions, you just don't have to, go overboard and everything. And of course, we get to one of my favorite panels, when Johnny Storm and Peter Parker sit down for lunch and everything. Of course, Peter, you can tell this is obviously just the same issue and everything, but these two is the most fun friendship ever. Back in the day, these two were constantly at each other's throats over just about everything. But when they realized that they both had the exact same kind of life, they laughed and pretty much called it a truce. It's all at this point, it's now become all harmless fun. Johnny is just pretty much like one of those characters that you can joke around with and mock. Is one of those friends you can joke around with and mock each other without either side taking it too personally. But yeah, I think that with this C2 Peter is just way too uptight about this. He cares about responsibility way too much. I mean, it's like the old saying goes, it's a pity, but the lass here is just gonna have to learn it for herself. And yeah, so this is basically just Dragon Man, which is kind of something out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I'm gonna, flip ahead and everything. This is where Peter ends up becoming Venom, or at least an Alex Ross version of Venom, If you haven't known Alex Ross, I think he's probably known for drawing the symbiotes or something like that. But, yeah, either way. The art style is kind of improving around here. I mean, improving around here. Plus, the symbiote design for Spider-Man is actually pretty good. A nice a grayish blue color with the black and everything is very, very nice. Really helps to make him stand out in his own and everything. And, of course, you got Franklin Richards talking with Mayday. I know that they're like 10 years difference, but I think that the chemistry between these two is so adorable. Her fangirling over Franklin, and then I think later on, he kind of ditches her for Wild Thing or something like that, which is like the daughter of Elektra and Wolverine. You can tell that these two had a ball with this, had a ball making this one, and the fact that Moose Manfield got his ass handed to him by Jimmy Yama, just by barely clipping him in the throat. He barely nicked him in his Adam's apple, and it just happened like that. And he nearly choked on it, too. Oh, but man, this book is just too wild and stuff. And the fact that Peter's been training her all night, all up at 4 in the morning and everything for this, that's just too... That's too much. I mean, come on. I know you need practice, but can't you just save it for, like, after school or just on weekends and everything, like most normal kids? Or is it just because just because you drowned in responsibility and guilt doesn't mean she has to? Seriously, yeah. I mean, isn't the point of having the younger generation just to improve? It's like Vanessa Carlyle from the Deadpool movie, and I know I'll be quoting that a lot, but that movie had some fire-ass quotables and some very wholesome moments. And it's like Vanessa Carlyle said, kids give us a chance to be better than what we used to be. So let her live her own life. Don't drag her into the whole 5 a.m. training session, and then suddenly blaming her because her grades were slipping because of this whole thing. I know that MJ's acting like a total mom over here, but yes, yeah. It's like, you shouldn't, if she didn't give that much of a snow rat's ass about grades and homework and everything, she probably would have probably could have thrown herself into this kind of work, or at least her social life. I know I would have. Believe me, no one likes doing this. Then, of course, she's working with Phil Urich, a friend of her dad's in this universe, whom she names Uncle Phil. Then, of course, we kind of quickly flash back to when Jimmy Yama is pretty much acting like an arrogant ass, and, of course, drives both women away. So, congratulations, Yama. You now have mastered the chick repellent that Peter Parker had back in his day. Maybe not so much the arrogant ass part, but, there's kind of a lot to go off of around here, so I'll just be flipping through some of the pages and stuff. Oh yeah, like how when Mayday Parker traveled back in time to work with a younger version of her dad and teamed up with the Human Torch at the same time. It's pretty nice. You get to see even Benny. You get to see Liz Allen. I mean, the original Liz Allen. Like, I know that spectacular version of Liz Allen is kind of my favorite because of the character development and the race bending and everything. But this was the original Liz Allen from the 616 universe. And Flash, oh man, he got old and fat in the MC2 universe. And I mean, it's hilarious. The old schoolyard bully now working as a gym coach. Not that there's anything wrong with the gym thing, but the fact of him getting old and fat, it really helped to humble him in life. I can tell you that much. And the fact that she's getting to spend time with her mother in this universe, it's like saying reserved. That's one word no one will ever use to describe me. But oh, will she ever? I guess she kind of grew. Oh, hey, Dad. We'll be right back with these important messages. Yes.
Oh, I haven't seen you yet today.
You just saw me this morning before you left.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go over and pass you for a while.
Okay.
You have a good day. Oh, don't take a picture.
All right, then I'll just change my shirt then.
Okay, that's a good. I'll do the risky stuff and all like that. You got some of the other pictures. That's a really good one. You look good in that.
Yeah, all right, then. So well, just change my shirt. Really good. Yeah, you probably just said about the other ones too, but yeah.
You got a lot of shirts up there, but that's getting more than that. All right, see you tonight, then, Bob.
All right, see you tonight. Bye.
These notepads and pencils, put it in your car.
All right. I'll store them with the rest of them that you already put inside the glove, like the console of my car.
So since I was looking to write something down the other day.
You have the notes section on your phone you can do that with. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. Here, you know how to do something. Alright, folks, yeah, sorry about that. Now we're back from our commercial break. I guess it looks like we're almost out of time for this episode, but I'll just skip to the end skip to the end. But yeah. Anyway, since there really was no definitive version of it in animated form, I think it's safe to say that the book definitely did her justice. Mayday's initial character journey began here, and it was really fleshed out in the series. And as a result, we all got to see that eventual slow rise from random one-off to main character. But yeah, I think when all's said and done, though, Mayday really was the good catalyst for great next-gen storytelling. It's a shame that the 616 universe never did anything with her, because trust me, even after her series ended, there was still plenty more potential and opportunities ripe for the taking. It makes I can now totally that, like Miles Morales in the Ultimate from the Ultimate verse, she really was a catalyst for good storytelling, and I can see why she and her sister Annie from the Renew Your Vows were such underrated fan favorites. Mayday is and will always be good, with a lot more going for her than meets the eye. One of a true heir to the Spider-Man mantle, and one of the first, if I ever saw one. That's all the time we have for this episode, true believers, but join me again next time when I review another harrowing journey into mystery. So, until next time, true believers, Excelsior! And also don't forget to pick up this, if you want to learn more about Spider-Girl, log on to the Marvel database or pick up a comic book just like this one from Marvel Legacies at your local comic book store. Alright, until next time, true believers, Excelsior!